Ghost is the most popular Tera type in the OU format, and Water is the most popular Tera type in VGC. How do I know that? Well, I found out. Pokémon Showdown publishes usage statistics and log data of competitive battles, and I wrote a program to find out how popular each Tera type is for each format. Tera types are interesting. They let you change a Pokemon's type once per battle, and the strategy that arises from that defines the entire generation. If you want to win consistently, you have to get your terrestrializations correct. Psychic is the worst Tera type by far across all formats. Tera Stellar is complicated, and some numbers actually surprised me. We're going to talk about OU and VGC, and then we're going to look at more niche formats and check if trends actually hold up. Our ultimate goal is to answer the question, what is more important? The fundamentals of a type or the metagame around the type? But before that, a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Polybuzz. It's an app with 10 million downloads worldwide that lets you create unique character chatbots that you can talk to and customize. For example, you can have a detailed conversation with Landorus T about the intricacies of Stealth Rock and the OU metagame. Or if you want something more lighthearted, you can drop into a group chat of legendary Pokemon. You can talk to anime characters, movie characters, historical figures, really anybody. There are over 20 million characters you can talk to, and if you still don't find what you're looking for, you can just make your own characters and customize your experience. I made a character for Quaxley, the starter Pokemon I picked when I first played Pokemon Violet. Something else important to talk about is that the app is safe. Your messages are all private and secure, and there is a dedicated teen mode for children too. To download the app, you can use my unique promo code for access to premium features on your download. But now back to the video. The three most common Tera types in OU are Ghost, Water, and Fairy. Let's talk about why Ghost is number one, because it's not immediately obvious. When we talk about the best types in Pokemon, we think of Water, Fairy, or Steel. We don't think about Ghost. On its own, I'd say that Ghost is an upper tier type, but not necessarily elite. It's only weak to two types, Dark and Ghost, and it has useful immunities to Normal and Fighting. However, it only resists Bug and Poison, which aren't common offensive types. The lack of resistances prevents me from calling Ghost elite in a vacuum. But Ghost is interesting for a number of metagame reasons, and that pushes it from a good type, maybe a great type, into the best type. One is its general utility in a hazard stack metagame. Ghost blocks Rapid Spin, and offensive hazard setting Pokemon love to use Tera Ghost to protect their hazards in an emergency. Glimmora knows Stealth Rock, Spikes, and its ability gets up Toxic Spikes. And guess what? 75% of Glimmora use Tera Ghost. Samurott Hisui is well known for getting Spikes up, and it also has Tera Ghost as its most common Tera type. Even Pecharunt uses Tera Ghost to stay a Ghost type while removing its weakness to Ground so that it could handle Rapid Spin Great Tusk even better. Most hazard stacking teams use Gholdengo to protect their hazards, but it's always nice to have more insurance to help out. Sticky Web Pokemon like Arachnid also use Tera Ghost to protect their Sticky Web. Typically you lead with Sticky Web and you're not going to terrestrialize with your lead, it's too valuable a resource to do that. However, maybe down the line, in a pinch, you might need that to block a Rapid Spin. Maybe your Gholdengo gets taken down and Great Tusk is going to be able to get a free Rapid Spin. Instead, you use Tera Ghost, block the Rapid Spin, and then knock out Great Tusk, keep Sticky Web up for the rest of the game. Earlier this year, a Sticky Web team hit number 1 on the global ladder, and it didn't have Gholdengo to guard its Sticky Web. Instead, the team used 4 different Tera Ghost Pokemon to protect the team's right to Sticky Web. That's an extreme example, but it's an idea of how useful Tera Ghost can be. Literally any hazard Pokemon can use Tera Ghost, and hazard-centric teams can justifiably use Tera Ghost on any Pokemon. That alone contributes to Tera Ghost's viability. On top of that, there are more specific metagame reasons too. Namely, Iron Valiant and King Gambit are both 2 common Tera Ghost Pokemon. These 2 Pokemon are extremely common and extremely good in the current metagame. Iron Valiant loves to use Tera Ghost Shadow Ball on its Calm Mind moveset. The main reason is that the two most relevant Poison-type Pokemon who can take on Iron Valiant's Moonblast are Slowking Galar and Pecharunt, who are both weak to Ghost. It's the perfect way to turn the table on them. King Gambit runs Tera Ghost for fundamental reasons. King Gambit is the ideal late-game sweeper, but it's 4 times weak to fighting. Ghost fixes that. Ghost helps you versus Great Tusk, defensive body press Pokemon like Corviknight, and is generally good because of the synergy with Dark and Steel. You become weaker to the Ghost type, but you have Sucker Punch, so you cover that fairly well. You do become weaker to the Dark type now, but overall that's a fine concession to make. Ghost gets usage for being the best Tera type on some of the most used Pokemon in the format. And there's also Zamazenta and Dragonite, but this time these Pokemon don't use Tera Ghost. Other Pokemon use Tera Ghost to beat them. Zamazenta's Iron Defense Body Press moveset is one of the most terrifying sights in the entire metagame. But Tera Ghost shuts that down completely. Zamazenta can still hit you with Crunch, but that's so much weaker than Body Press, especially because Zamazentas are investing EVs into defense for Body Press damage, not investing in attack. Tera Ghost is a relatively reliable way to rein in Zamazenta. You can even play some tricks and use Tera Ghost on Pokemon who ordinarily wouldn't use it, just so that you can fool Zamazenta players into thinking they're entering an endgame where they win, but they actually don't. Similarly, Ghost is also helpful for Tera Normal Extreme Speed Dragonite. Tera Normal Dragonite is incredibly strong and helps keep faster Pokemon in check. These faster offensive Pokemon love Tera Ghost because it adds the air of finality to their attack. They know that no Pokemon can outspeed them if they cover Extreme Speed. It's another reason why Tera Ghost Iron Valiant is so good. It can't be revenge killed by Dragonite, and it can revenge kill Dragonite too by outspeeding it. Weavile loves Tera Ghost because it covers its 4 times weakness to fighting and helps versus that extreme speed. Gliscor with Tera Normal Facade is also incredibly threatening, and Tera Ghost helps versus that too. And finally, Dragapult likes to use Tera Ghost to get a little bit more powerful. Dragapult can either go physical or special or mixed, but all of its Ghost type moves are really weak. On the physical side, you'd have to use a 2-turn move in Phantom Force, so you'd much rather use physical Tera Blast. And on the special side, Shadow Ball is pretty weak, so you'd rather have a Tera Ghost to boost that power damage. Overall, it's pretty clear to see why Ghost is widely understood as one of the best Tera types in OU. The other 3 most popular Tera types are pretty easy to understand. Water, Fairy, and Steel are widely acknowledged as 3 of the best types in the game of Pokemon. These types are weak to very few other types while also resisting many more. I call them the Big 3, and if you don't know what type you want to be, turning into a Big 3 type is almost always a good idea. Out of the Big 3, Water sees a little bit more usage because Ogerpon Wellspring is one of the top Pokemon in the format and it's forced to be Tera Water. Steel has the lowest usage out of the Big 3 because this format in particular has a ton of relevant ground-type Pokemon like Great Tusk, Landorus, and Gliscor. Some of the more middling Tera types are also interesting to talk about. Flying is the perfect example of a situational Tera type. Its main use case is Tera Flying Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon can activate its booster energy to gain an attack boost and then throw off powerful Tera Flying acrobatics. But most Pokemon don't have that type of unique synergy. Offensive Landorus T can use Tera Flying Tera Blast because it doesn't have a good flying type attack. But other than that, there's really not a good reason to turn into a flying type. You become weak to Stealth Rock and you're weak to common attacking types like Ice now. The main defensive utility is gaining an immunity to ground to take on Great Tusk, but that's about it. What's important to think about is opportunity cost. You only get 1 Tera per game and each Pokemon can only have 1 Tera type. As a very rough rule of thumb, I value the access to terrestrialization at about 1.5 Pokemon. Is your Tera Flying going to be worth that much? For example, in the World Cup of Pokemon, in one game I did have Tera Flying on a Primarina. I didn't end up using it, but for that particular team, I did value the potential to surprise an opposing Great Tusk as valuable enough to justify using it. Most middling Tera types fall into this category. They may have 1 or 2 Pokemon who synergize well with a particular type, but otherwise it's very niche and hard to justify. Normal is fantastic for Tera Normal Facade Gliscor, one of the best Pokemon in the format, but it's otherwise not very useful. Fire is good to make a physical attacker immune to burn, and Dark is a stall staple on specially defensive Pokemon to give them immunities to Psyshock and Stored Power, which are 2 moves that can single-handedly break stall. Dark is also useful offensively too. If Iron Valiant goes for a Swords Dance moveset, it can use Tera Dark Knockoff to beat Ghost-type Pokemon. Tera Dark Sucker Punch Kingambit is ridiculous, and Zamazenta can use Tera Dark Crunch to try and solve its Ghost-type problem. The worst Tera types are pretty tragic. Psychic is the worst type, and I genuinely cannot think of a single Pokemon who wants to be Tera Psychic. At best, you have Psychic Terrain in DD and Expanding Force Armarouge, and you want to turn into a damage machine with Tera Psychic. But first of all, the strategy isn't very good, and even still, using Tera Psychic on that build makes a good matchup great, but it doesn't fix a bad matchup. Let me explain. The main stop to a Psychic Terrain strategy is that Dark-type Pokemon are everywhere. Kingambit, Tinglu, Darkrai, you name it. Tera Psychic doesn't solve that problem. But if you're fighting a team without a Dark type, then yes, Tera Psychic is pretty cool. But in that situation, a Psychic Terrain team versus no Dark type is already a pretty dominant matchup to begin with. You probably don't need the help of another Tera Psychic. It's just not that good. Similarly, Rock isn't very good too. I can't think of any Pokemon that wants to be a Rock type. Only Ogerpon Cornerstone contributes to Rock type usage, and that Pokemon isn't very common. And finally, on the Hall of Shame, we have Tera Stellar. Tera Stellar's failings are well documented in the competitive scene, and I believe it's mainly meant to be used in the in-game raid battle mechanics, and the only use case here is Tera Stellar and Namorous because of its contrary ability. When Tera Blast is a Stellar type move, it becomes a 120 base power move instead that drops your attack and special attack. But because of contrary, it actually increases your special attack. You can try and late game sweep with a Scarf Tera Blast and Namorous. However, it's hard to get going because Stellar Tera Blast doesn't actually get a stab boost on its attack. You're oftentimes much better using Tera Fairy and Moonblast to sweep late game, or using Tera Ghost to give yourself Dragonite insurance. But enough about OU, let's talk about VGC now. Looking at the graph, the real outlier is the Steel type. It's much lower than you'd expect for a Big 3 typing. But let's work our way to the bottom. Water is good for obvious reasons as mentioned before. But the reason it's number 1 in VGC is because of one Pokemon, Urshifu Water. First of all, Urshifu Water is itself the best non-restricted Pokemon and uses Tera Water on its more offensive structures. Tera Water Surging Strikes is crazy damage, and Tera Water Aqua Jet gives you enough power to snipe weakened targets. The most glorious combination is Drizzle Pelipper, Tera Water Urshifu, and Qian Pao, whose ability lowers the defense of everything on the field. Funnily enough, it also works the other way too. Tera Water is more represented as a generic defensive type because it helps versus Urshifu Water. When I played in the Pokemon World Championship in Japan, I actually brought a Tera Water Fluttermane with a lot of defense EVs. I wanted to be able to take on Urshifu, I wanted Tera Blast Water to take on Heatran, and I wanted to still have a good defensive type. Water's versatility is unmatched, and Urshifu pushes it to number 1. Ghost is popular in VGC, but for a different reason. In VGC, it's not about hazards, it's about Fake Out. Gaining an immunity to Fake Out is incredibly valuable in the context of a double battle. Incineroar and Rillaboom's Fake Out can be match dominating, and offensive Pokemon love to be able to attack without having to fear a Fake Out. It's also helpful to stop the Fake Out plus Trick Room combo, which is a pretty easy idea with Calyrex Ice. Focus Sash Pokemon in particular love Tera Ghost because it lets them stop Fake Out from removing their Focus Sash. Qian Pao and Chi Yu are good examples of Tera Ghost Pokemon. They're both powerful Pokemon who want to spend their time attacking, not protecting, and they're often Focus Sash candidates too. Additionally, Ghost is helpful for the Zamazenta matchup. Tera Ghost Incineroar is a common Tera type because Ghost grants you the immunity to Body Press, and Intimidate significantly reduces the damage of Crunch if they have that move. Grass is more represented in VGC than OU because it makes you immune to the moves Spore and Rage Powder. Amoonguss is a popular Pokemon, and Spore putting your Pokemon to sleep is devastating. It's incredibly common to make your team as resistant to Spore as possible. That means using Tera Grass Pokemon, Safety Goggles on key Pokemon, Taunt, whatever. Tera Grass also has natural synergy with Water-type Pokemon as it removes the weakness to Grass and Electric. Urshifu Water loves to use Tera Grass, that way Rocky Helmet Amoonguss can't redirect Surging Strikes into it with Rage Powder. Similarly, Kyogre loves Tera Grass for Amoonguss, Rillaboom, Miraidon, and Raging Bolt. So does Dondozo. On paper, Grass seems like a terrible type, and it does have many weaknesses. but in the context of VGC, it's a perfectly fine type to turn into because of its relationship with the water type and its immunity to Spore and Rage Powder. Stellar has a relatively high usage rate, but that's actually really misleading. The usage rate mainly comes from Terapagos, who is forced to be Tera Stellar, and Terapagos is a great Pokemon. Other than that, it's not particularly common. You sometimes see Tera Stellar on Qianpao. There are trade-offs with Tera Ghost, but the idea is that Tera Stellar gives you enough power to nail some key knockouts, and because Qianpao is so frail, you don't care too much about your defensive type anyway. We've also seen miscellaneous offensive Pokemon use Tera Stellar too, like Pelipper, because of its strong Weather Ball and Hurricane combo. Similar to Stellar, Tera Rock's usage is misleading because of Ogerpon Rock, who is forced to use Tera Rock. In OU, Ogerpon Rock isn't really valuable, and Sturdy is meaningless because of hazard damage. In VGC, however, there are no hazards and the metagame is much more offensive. That Sturdy ability is now incredibly valuable. Being able to live just one more attack with Sturdy can buy you enough time to win the game. Along with Follow Me, one of the best moves in double battles, Ogerpon is a rock-solid Pokemon. But other than that, there is no reason for Tera Rock. Tera Ice is pretty low because the main reason you use it is with Tera Ice Blizzard spam, which isn't too common in the new meta. There are some strategies with Blizzard, Kyurem White, and Ninetales, but it isn't really that popular. The other main situation you'd use Tera Ice is for a strategy known as Bolt Beam, where you combo an electric type and an ice type move together because there's nothing that takes on both of them. But independently, even though the Bolt Beam combo is definitely good, there aren't many good electric type Pokemon to take advantage of it. Your only real option is Regieleki. But let's talk Tera Steel. Why is it so low despite Steel being a fundamentally good type? For context, let's take a look at the previous format when all legendary Pokemon were banned. Here, Steel's representation is about what you'd expect. However, in a restricted format, Steel happens to match up poorly into almost every single restricted legendary Pokemon. With the exception of Calyrex Ice, who uses high horsepower anyway, and Zacian, Steel doesn't do much. Zamazenta beats you, Calyrex Shadow doesn't care, Miraidon doesn't care, Kyogre doesn't care, Groudon beats you, and Terapagos' signature move hits terrestrialized Pokemon super effectively. On top of that, Steel makes you weak to the two best non-restricted legendary Pokemon, Incineroar and Urshifu, who are on almost every team. You can see that a lot of the type fundamentals matter. Generally speaking, the good types are at the top and the bad types are at the bottom. But there are often metagame reasons that can override conventional wisdom. For fun, let's take a look at other non-standard metas to see where they lie. UU is the second tier in Smogon's tiering system, and for the most part, the trends from OU hold up pretty well. The only difference is that Steel has a lot more representation. It happens that in UU specifically, there's a lot of offensive threats that Steel helps you versus, like Latios, Hydrapple, Weavile, or Scizor. Tornadus T in particular is the best Pokemon in the format and loves to turn into a Steel type to stave off these threats. Similarly, Hydrapple and Thundurus T often go Tera Steel, and Scizor, another top Pokemon, goes Tera Steel to clean up games with its late game Technician Bullet Punch. RU doesn't deviate from the norm too much, it's about what you'd expect, and neither does NU deviate too much either. Even though they don't have Zamazenta, Iron Valiant, or King Gambit, Tera Ghost holds up for a lot of the fundamental reasons of the type. In PU, we see Steel back at number 1, and interestingly, we see Poison relatively high at number 5. That's because Bellabolt is a top Pokemon in the tier and is one of the few Pokemon that learns Toxic naturally. A lot of Pokemon go Tera Poison to protect themselves. Tera Poison is also nice into another of the tier's top Pokemon, Florges. Rhydon uses Tera Poison for a ton of useful resistances, like helping out versus the tier's Grass-type Pokemon. Pokemon like Wo-Chien or Scrafty love Tera Poison for the Fairy resistance. The unique circumstances turn Poison from a middle-of-the-pack Tera type into something great in the PU tier. It's overall an interesting distribution. Let me know in the comment section which Tera type usage rate surprised you the most, and how would you fix the Psychic type? Thanks for watching.